Miss you, miss you, miss you, miss you. Oh. Let's get into it. This is the Goodfellas, Stax Edwards. Come to the damn sound. Where the sound at? Oh, shit.
A one-bedroom apartment in Ozone Park, Queens. Parnell Stax Edwards was sitting at his kitchen table playing cards with his girlfriend when the door burst open. No knock, no warning. Tommy DeSimone walked in holding a .38 caliber revolver.
Oh, that's the real
Angelo
Tommy.
Sepe was right behind him. Stax looked up. He knew why they were there. DeSimone raised the gun and fired 6 shots. 5 hit Stax in the face and chest.
Damn.
1 missed and lodged in the wall. Stax died instantly, blood pooling across the scattered playing cards. The whole hit took 11 seconds. This wasn't just another Lufthansa murder. Stax Edwards was a professional boxer who'd sparred in Muhammad Ali's training camps. He'd fought legitimate opponents. He'd had discipline, structure, and a future.
That's him in background.
But by December 1978...
That was, he sparred for my, that was him. Oh, wow. And that picture is famous. It's iconic. That's him when he was in Miami. I didn't know that. He was oh, wow.
Playing cards. The whole hit took 11 seconds. This wasn't just another Lufthansa murder. Stax Edwards was a professional boxer who'd sparred in Muhammad Ali's training camps.
That's him right there in the back. That's him right there. That was when he was training in Miami in like the late 60s. That's Stax right there. Oh, wow. How did he go from working with one of the greatest boxers of all time to dealing with a bunch of street-level gangsters? Let's find out, shall we?
Legitimate opponents. He'd had discipline, structure, and a future. But by December 1978, he was a low-level errand boy for Jimmy Burke's crew, and he'd made one mistake. He forgot to dump a van. That mistake cost him his life at 28 years old. This is the story of how a fighter fell from Ali's world into Burke's. From boxing gyms to mob kitchens, from sparring partners to getaway drivers, from proximity to greatness to execution for incompetence. Stax Edwards wasn't killed for betrayal. He was killed for being replaceable. But here's what Goodfellas never told you. Stax Edwards had a real life before the mob, a legitimate career, a path out, and he walked away from all of it. Parnell Stephen Edwards was born July 19th, 1950, in Brooklyn, New York. His parents were working class. His father was a factory worker. His mother cleaned houses. Stax grew up in Brownsville, one of the toughest neighborhoods in Brooklyn. Violence was normal. Poverty was expected. But Stax had something most kids in Brownsville didn't have: natural athletic ability. By age 14, he was 6 feet tall, lean, fast, with quick hands and good footwork. A local trainer saw him street fighting and told him to come to the gym. Stax started boxing at age 15. He trained at Gleason's Gym in Brooklyn, one of the most respected boxing facilities in New York.
I think that's where Mike Tyson started out, right? Gleason, I've heard that sound familiar. Gleason's Gym. That's a famous gym. They should make T-shirts. They probably already got T-shirts. I gotta check and see.
Gleason's had produced champions. Muhammad Ali trained there. Joe Frazier trained there. If you could survive at Gleason's, you could fight anywhere. Stax survived. He wasn't a star. He wasn't a future champion. But he was good enough to get noticed. By age 17, he was sparring with professional fighters. By age 19, he'd turned pro. Stax fought as a lightweight, 135 pounds. Between 1969 and 1974, he fought 14 professional bouts.
Oh, wow.
His record was 7 wins, 5 losses, 2 draws. He wasn't championship material, but he was tough. He could take a punch. He never quit. Promoters liked him because he showed up on time, fought hard, and didn't complain about purses. Trainers liked him because he was disciplined. He didn't drink. He didn't smoke. He trained 6 days a week. Boxing gave Stax structure, purpose, identity. But here's where Stax's story intersects with greatness. In the early 1970s, Muhammad Ali was training for major fights in New York and Pennsylvania. Ali's camps were chaotic operations. Dozens of sparring partners, trainers, hangers-on, Reporters and fans circulated through training facilities. Ali needed security. Not Secret Service level protection, just big guys who could handle crowds, keep unauthorized people out, and make sure nothing disrupted training. Stax Edwards was one of those guys. You have to understand what this role actually meant. Stax wasn't Ali's personal bodyguard. He wasn't in Ali's inner circle. He wasn't traveling with Ali to fights or staying in the same hotels. Stax was one of many fighters who did informal security work around training camps, standing at doors, checking credentials, moving crowds. It was grunt work, but it was legitimate work, and it put Stax in proximity to the greatest boxer of all time. For a kid from Brownsville who'd grown up with nothing, that proximity felt like success. Later retellings would exaggerate Stax's role. Some accounts called him Ali's bodyguard. Others suggested he was part of Ali's permanent security team. The truth is simpler. Stax was a journeyman fighter who did occasional security work around Ali's camps. He was close enough to greatness to glimpse it, but never close enough to escape his own limits. And that gap between proximity and participation would define the rest of Stax's life. By 1975, Stax's boxing career was stalling. He was 25 years old.
He was young.
His record wasn't improving. He wasn't getting title fights. He wasn't making enough money to support himself. A journeyman boxer in the 1970s earned between $500 and $2,000 per fight. Stax fought maybe 4 times a year.
Oh, wow.
That's $2,000.
Ain't no money. That's $8,000 annually. He was even for the 70. That's a low amount. $8,000 annually.
To $8,000 annually. You couldn't live on that. Not in New York. Not with rent, food, training expenses, and medical bills from getting punched in the face for a living. Stax started missing training sessions. He stopped showing up for sparring appointments. Promoters stopped calling. By 1976, his boxing career was effectively over. And that's when the discipline that had kept Stax focused started to erode. Without structure, without purpose, without income, Stax began drifting. He tried to get legitimate work. He worked construction for a few months. He worked as a bouncer at nightclubs in Queens. But he wasn't built for 9-to-5 life. He'd spent 10 years training to fight, to hurt people, to survive violence. Those skills don't translate well to civilian employment. Here's where things get dark. By 1977, Stax had developed a cocaine habit, casual at first, recreational. But cocaine in the 1970s wasn't like it is now. It was expensive, it was addictive, and it required money Stax didn't have. He started hanging around.
And it was very pure. That's why you had so many. That's why the cocaine cowboys in the late 70s, early 80s was a big thing, because that was that's when America started really getting into the 70s, mid the 70s to the 80s. That's when that was no fentanyl, no cutting it with baby laxative, or what do they call it, baby formula, baby laxative. That was pure, and it was more and more addictive back then.
Around people who had cash, gamblers, bookies, small-time criminals. And through those connections, he ended up in Queens, at Robert's Lounge, in Jimmy Burke's world. Jimmy Burke, 46 years old in 1977, was a Lucchese crime family associate who ran hijacking and fencing operations out of Robert's Lounge in South Ozone Park. Burke was looking for muscle, guys who could drive, guys who could follow orders, guys who were expendable. Stax Edwards fit perfectly. He was big, he was tough, he was known in the neighborhood, and most importantly, he was desperate. Burke didn't recruit Stax because he was smart or ambitious. Burke recruited him because Stax was available and replaceable. Burke gave Stax small jobs at first: drive a car, pick up a package, stand at a door. Stax wasn't part of the crew. He was hired help. But the money was good. $200 for a night's work, $500 for a weekend, $1,000 if the job was risky. For a guy who'd been earning $8,000 a year boxing, this felt like wealth. Stax started doing regular work for Burke's crew in 1978. He ran errands. He moved stolen goods. He drove getaway cars. He was close enough to the action to feel important. but far enough from power to be disposable. And that's the position you never want to be in with men like Jimmy Burke, because the moment you become a liability, you disappear. Then came Lufthansa. December 11th, 1978. 3:17 a.m. John F. Kennedy International Airport. 6 armed men entered the Lufthansa cargo terminal and stole $5 million in cash and $875,000 in jewelry.
Right.
It was the biggest cash robbery in American history at the time. Jimmy Burke masterminded it. Tommy DeSimone executed it. Henry Hill facilitated it. And Stax Edwards was given one job afterward. One simple, critical job. Drive the getaway van to a scrapyard in New Jersey and have it crushed immediately, within hours of the heist. The van contained fingerprints, forensic evidence, and traceable materials. If police found it, the entire crew would be exposed. This was the most important task in the post-heist cleanup, and Burke gave it to Stax Edwards. Here's what Stax was supposed to do. At 4:30 a.m. on December 11th, immediately after the crew left the airport, Stax was supposed to drive the van to a scrapyard Burke controlled in Jersey City. The scrapyard owner was on the payroll. He'd be waiting. The van would be inside a compactor by 5 a.m., crushed into a cube of metal by 6 a.m., sold for scrap by the end of the week. No evidence. No investigation. No problem. Stax' cut for the job was $10,000.
Yeah.
All he had to do was drive 15 miles and watch a van get destroyed. Stax didn't do it. He got high instead. After leaving the airport, Stax drove the van to his girlfriend's apartment building in Ozone Park. He parked it on the street. He went inside. He smoked cocaine. He fell asleep. The van sat there for 3 days. On December 14th, police found it. They towed it to an impound lot. Forensic technicians processed it. They lifted fingerprints from the steering wheel, the door handles, and the gear shift. Stax prints were all over it. So were prints from other crew members. The FBI now had physical evidence linking the crew to Lufthansa. And it was Stax' fault. Jimmy Burke found out on December 15th. He didn't yell. He didn't threaten. He just made a decision. Stax Edwards had to die. Not as punishment, as housekeeping. Stax was a loose end. And loose ends got cut. Burke told Tommy DeSimone to handle it. Tommy DeSimone, 28 years old, was Burke's most reliable killer. He'd murdered at least 6 people by December 1978. He was impulsive, violent, and efficient. He didn't ask questions. He didn't hesitate. Burke told him to kill Stax. Tommy said okay. 3 days later, it was done. December 18th, 1978. Tommy DeSimone and Angelo Sepe drove to Stax' apartment in Ozone Park. It was early morning. Around 6 a.m., they knew Stax would be home. They knocked on the door. Stax opened it. He was wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt. He'd been up all night getting high. Tommy walked in. Angelo followed. Stax' girlfriend was sitting at the kitchen table.
How do you know this?
Tommy told her to go into the bedroom. She went. Tommy turned to Stax. He didn't explain. He didn't give Stax a chance to beg. He just raised the gun and fired. According to Henry Hill's later testimony, Tommy shot Stax 6 times. 5 bullets hit Stax in the face and upper chest. 1 missed. Stax died instantly. He collapsed onto the kitchen floor. Tommy and Angelo walked out. They got in the car. They drove back to Robert's lounge. They told Burke it was done. Burke nodded. That was it. Stax Edwards, former professional boxer, occasional security guy for Muhammad Ali's training camps, was dead at 28. Executed for forgetting to dump a van. Here's what makes Stax' death particularly tragic. He wasn't a mobster. He wasn't a career criminal. He was an athlete who lost his way. A fighter who couldn't find a fight worth having. A guy who'd briefly touched greatness and then spent the rest of his short life trying to recapture that feeling. Working for Jimmy Burke felt like being close to power again. Like being important. But Stax confused proximity with protection. And that
hit the thumbs up button. The thumbs up button. It's a part of this that I want to detail. If they don't detail it in this documentary, I read it in the comments. So keep watching, and I'm gonna tell y'all at the bottom what I'm talking about, because it's something that somebody left in the comments that's really, really potent to this story.
Confusion killed him. You have to understand how expendable Stax was to Burke. In the mafia hierarchy, there are bosses, underbosses, captains, soldiers, and associates. Stax wasn't even an associate. He was hired help, day labor with a criminal twist. He had no family connections, no institutional protection, no leverage.
Nope.
If Stax disappeared, nobody would retaliate.
No.
Nobody would investigate.
Nobody would care.
Nobody would care. Burke knew that. And that's why Burke had no hesitation about killing him. But here's the thing that makes Stax's story even sadder. He'd had options. Real options. In 1975, before his boxing career completely collapsed, a trainer offered Stax a job working full-time at Gleason's gym, training young fighters, running the facility. It was legitimate work, steady income, a future. Stax turned it down. He said he wasn't ready to give up on fighting yet. He wanted one more shot at a real purse. That shot never came. And by the time Stax was ready to accept the gym job, the offer was gone. Someone else had taken it. That's the pattern with guys like Stax. They see crime as temporary, as a way to make fast money until the real opportunity comes along. But crime has gravity. The longer you stay in, the harder it is to get out. Stax thought he was just doing a few jobs for Burke until he got back on his feet. But there's no getting back on your feet when you're working for men like Jimmy Burke. There's only getting deeper in, until you're too deep to climb out, until the only way out is a bullet. After Stax's murder, the crew moved on. Burke kept killing. Martin Krugman disappeared in January 1979, strangled and dismembered. Richard Eaton was shot. Joe Manry was found in a dumpster. Teresa Ferrara's body was found in a car trunk. Tommy DeSimone himself vanished in January 1979. The Gambinos killed him for murdering Maid member Ronald Jarutha without permission. By March 1979, 6 people connected to Lufthansa were dead. Stax was just the first. Stax's funeral was small. His mother was there, his girlfriend, a few guys from the old boxing gyms. Nobody from Burke's crew attended. They'd already forgotten him. Stax was buried in a cemetery in Brooklyn, not far from where he grew up. There's no famous headstone, no memorial, just a grave marker with his name and dates. July 19th, 1950 to December 18th, 1978. 28 years old.
He was young.
But here's what's important about Stax Edwards' story. It's not about the Lufthansa heist.
Tell you something, man. People back in those days looked like he was about 47. Like he was my age. He was only 28 years old. People back in the day used to look, but you gotta think the clothes they used to wear made them look old too. But that was the style. That was like their Jordans and stuff back then. You know what I'm saying? Or whatever the high end stuff is today. He was only 28. He wasn't even in his 30s yet. I see why he probably didn't want to give up his boxing career, because he was still young, 28 years old. He was still in his prime.
It's about the path that led him there. Stax wasn't born a criminal. He was born an athlete. He had discipline. He had potential. He was good enough to spar with champions, good enough to work around Muhammad Ali, good enough to have a legitimate career. But when that career stalled, when the money dried up, when the structure disappeared, Stax made a choice. He could struggle in poverty doing honest work, or he could make fast money doing dirty work. He chose fast money, and it killed him. This is the part of mob stories nobody talks about. The guys on the bottom, the expendable ones, the hired help, guys like Stax Edwards who weren't mobsters. They were desperate men who got used.
Is this when the because he got a mug shot? This was for another crime that he got the mug shot? Was that when they picked him up and he was willing to testify, and then they killed him? I'm like, why? Probably from other stuff that he did, because he got a mug shot right here. He was only 20. Look at this. This is the face of a 28-year-old man. He about in his early 40s right there.
This is the part of mob stories nobody talks about. The guys on the bottom, the expendable ones, the hired help, guys like Stax Edwards who weren't mobsters. They were desperate men who got used by mobsters. They didn't have family connections. They didn't have protection. They didn't have power. They just had need. And men like Jimmy Burke exploited that need. They gave guys like Stax just enough money to keep them hooked, just enough responsibility to make them feel important, and just enough exposure to make them liabilities. Stax thought he was working for the mob. He wasn't. He was working for Jimmy Burke. And Jimmy Burke was using him like you'd use a disposable razor. Useful for one job, thrown away when it's dull. Stax's mistake wasn't forgetting to dump the van. His mistake was thinking he mattered to people who saw him as a tool. You can't build loyalty with a hammer. You just use it until it breaks. Then you get another one. Here's the legacy of Stax Edwards. He's a footnote in the Lufthansa story, a minor character in Goodfellas. Samuel L. Jackson played him in the movie, got killed in a famous scene. But Jackson's performance made Stax seem like a screw-up, a junkie who couldn't follow simple instructions. That's not who Stax really was. Stax was a professional fighter, a disciplined athlete, a guy who'd worked around greatness. He didn't fail because he was incompetent. He failed because he was addicted, desperate, and in over his head. And here's what nobody asks. Why did Burke give the most important post-heist job to a drug addict? Burke knew Stax was using cocaine. He knew Stax was unreliable. So why trust him with the getaway van? The answer is simple. Burke didn't trust him. Burke expected him to fail. And when Stax failed, Burke had an excuse to kill him. Because Stax knew too much. He knew the crew. He knew the plan. He knew where the money went. As long as Stax was alive, he was a potential witness, a potential informant, a potential problem. The van was just an excuse. That's how men like Jimmy Burke operate.
Gonna kill him anyway.
They set you up to fail. They give you a job you can't handle. And when you screw up, they kill you and call it consequences. Stax never had a chance. He was dead the moment he got involved with Lufthansa. Burke just needed a reason. But here's the question nobody can answer. What would have happened if Stax had dumped the van? Would Burke have let him live? Probably not. Stax was still a liability. He still knew too much. He was still expendable.
He would have killed him anyway.
Burke killed Martin Krugman, even though Krugman did everything right. He killed Joe Manry, even though Manry never talked. He killed his own crew members because paranoia doesn't care about competence. It only cares about control.
And they were
And the only way to control someone completely is to kill them. Stax Edwards was a fighter who couldn't find a fight worth...
See what I'm saying? So even though the other guys did what the man said, he still killed them. Because he didn't want no... his plan was to eliminate everybody and keep the $5 million for himself. That was what the plan was from the get-go. And you think he finna spare a black man? You know, Italians already don't like black, especially them New York Italians. They already got a problem with black people. But those gangster Italians, Moulian, you Mouli and you eggplant. Come on, man. Where do you think them words came from? Them. So he was, he didn't give a damn about killing the black man, killing him. Hell no. You know, he paying them chump change anyway. You know, he wasn't made, he wasn't connected. So yeah, he was exposable. So he probably would have did him in if Stax would have took that van to. Matter of fact, I want to get to that in a second. Let me just complete. I want to show y'all something in the comments.
Winning. A guy who'd briefly touched greatness and spent the rest of his life chasing that feeling. He thought working for Jimmy Burke was another way to be close to power, to be important,
He should
to
stay with
matter.
Muhammad.
But criminal organizations don't work like boxing gyms. In boxing, if you work hard, you get better. You earn respect. You build a career. In crime, hard work just makes you useful. And useful people are the first ones to get killed because they know too much. And dead men can't testify. Stax Edwards died face down on a kitchen floor in Queens, shot 6 times by a man he thought was his friend for a mistake he made while high on cocaine, working for a crew that never valued him, chasing money he'd never spent for a heist he barely participated in. He was 28 years old. He'd been a professional boxer. He'd sparred with champions. He'd worked around Muhammad Ali. And he ended up as a cautionary...
That's a famous picture. That was Stax the whole time. That's crazy.
Tale about desperation, addiction, and the disposable men who work at the bottom of organized crime. That's the real story of Stax Edwards. Not the screw-up from Goodfellas, the fighter who lost his way, the athlete who traded discipline for fast money, the guy who thought proximity to power was the same as having power. It's not. And Stax learned that lesson 6 seconds too late. If you found this story revealing, hit subscribe.
Man, so let's give a shout out to the content creator of this content. Mafia Talks and Street Files. I'm gonna go ahead and subscribe to them right now. Y'all should go ahead and subscribe too. This is that was really, even though that you could tell the voiceover was AI. Oh shit, how do I do that? Subscribe. I just subscribed to it. So I need y'all to go ahead and subscribe to it. That was an interesting story. Mafia Talks, Street Files. Go ahead and check them out. But anyway, I want to point out something in the comments. You know, I like to read the comments sometimes after I read some, like after I watch documentaries like this. I'm a big Goodfellas fan. First of all, I'm a big Mafia fan. Even though I'm a black, you know, I'm outside the world. Just the intrigue of the Mafia, how they work, and the deceitfulness is just it makes for good drama. You know what I'm saying? When I first saw Goodfellas, when I was a kid, that movie blew me away. First of all, it made me want to be a filmmaker and do content and do films, because the way Martin Scorsese shot that film, the way it was put together, it just I remember watching. I was a kid when that movie came out. I think I might have been maybe 5th or 6th grade. I wasn't into movies like that. It just happened to be on TV. I was like this, glued to like, whoa. It was just the way the narration, the way he brought you into the story and their world. Then I found out it was a true story. I started doing research and stuff. I was like, wow. But let me point out something in the comments though that somebody said is really interesting. Now, this person could be lying or they could be telling the truth, but because people on the internet be trying to lie to get likes and stuff. But let's see. It's the comments that I want to check out. It's by Marcus Huntley. Marcus Huntley. Marcus, see right here. This is what he said. Marcus Huntley said in the comments. He said, one of my fraternity brothers, whose dad was an NYPD major crime investigator back then, when this happened in the 70s, before we were even born, told us that an informant later told them that Stax didn't take the van to the junkyard because he suspected that he would have ended up in the van dead AF. You know what AF means. When they crushed it. Why? Well, for one, Stax worked for Jimmy for years, and he knew exactly how he thought. For two, Stax asked who was going to ride with him to Jersey, and they told him no one. Uh-oh. Let me pause this real quick and take this phone call. That was my very important call I had to take. So, where I live off at? So he said, well, for one, Stax worked for Jimmy for years and knew exactly how he thought. For two, Stax asked who was going to ride with him to Jersey, and they told him no one. The guy at the scrapyard will bring you back to your house in Queens. This made no sense. Why the hell would a guy he didn't even know be willing to drive him all the way back to NYC from Jersey in the middle of the night? Well, first of all, it was 6:30 a.m. by the time he got the van. So it was pretty much daytime. It was morning time by that time. So it wasn't nighttime. You see what I'm saying? So the guy could have, maybe the guy was hired told Jimmy, hey, you gotta take this guy Stack back. He knew he gonna need a ride back. But why not? Why don't you have somebody? But then again, you don't want nobody to ride with them because that's too many people in your business. They definitely don't want nobody Stacks know that they don't know to be involved, be riding in the van with them. But anyway, he says in the middle of the night, and as the commentator stated here, this video, Stacks was expendable, and he probably knew that. As to why he left it in the street for 2 nights, the informant stated that he believed that Stacks got spooked and just left the van within walking distance of his home and intended on going back and getting it after he found someone in Harlem with a garage that could strip it for parts and get rid of it. After which time he planned to go to Philadelphia with his girlfriend, the same one who was in the apartment with him when Tommy busted in and gave him the business. Now that's another thing. Why didn't they kill the girlfriend? She's a witness. Obviously they didn't have any. They told her to go in the room. Obviously she heard the shots. So why didn't they kill her? Why they just left her as a that? You know what I'm saying? That don't make no sense. You would think they would have killed her too, unless they came in with masks on, busting in with masks on. Then they, you know what I'm saying? Like, why would they leave her alive if she could see their face? But from what my frat brother's dad said, the informant stated Stacks was never going to take that van to Jersey, regardless, as he truly thought it would have been a one-way trip. And seeing how Jimmy cleaned up the rest of the crew that was involved that night, maybe he was right. Yeah, see what I'm saying? That's the comment I wanted to say. I wanted to read to y'all, but yeah, I did not know he was a sparring partner for Muhammad Ali. That's really interesting. Damn, that's crazy. They would have got rid of him. It's not you gonna kill all these Italian men that did everything right, and then leave the brother who did everything right. You're not gonna smoke him too. So even I'm thinking that Stacks was probably thinking the same thing too. Like, they gonna kill me anyway. The best thing to do when you come into the mafia, especially if you're black dealing with the mafia, don't get involved. But he was young, desperate for money. I probably would have thought, damn, and he was gonna get 10. I was just thinking that Jimmy probably made the shit so sweet for him. All you gotta do is just take the getaway van, drop it off, and then come back, and I give you $10,000. Hell, he probably would have dropped the van off. Dude probably would have gave him a ride, and then when he would have went to collect the money from Jimmy probably would have went ahead and smoked them then. You see what I'm saying? Instead of giving him the 10 grand. But because what loyalty did Jimmy? He wasn't made. He was just a poor guy, down on his luck, young guy trying to get on his feet. Black dude, ain't nobody gonna give a shit. You know what I'm saying? Wow. Rest in peace to Stack Edwards. What y'all think about this story, man? Let me know in the comments. Hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel. Talk to y'all later.